November 19th, and this is the regular meeting of the Assembly of Delegates. I call this meeting to order. Clerk Fletcher, can you please read the opening statements?
Yes. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates will be conducted both in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Members of the public may watch the meeting through live real-time broadcasts at www.youtube.com/user/Barnstable County. A public participation guide and meeting documents are available in advance at www.capecod.gov. The County of Barnstable does not discriminate in the administration of its programs or activities on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or other category protected by state and federal anti-discrimination laws and regulations. Reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities are available upon request. For more information or file a complaint, please contact Justina Marchek, Barnstable County ADA Non-Discrimination Coordinator at JMARCZAK@capecod.gov, call 508-375-6646, or visit www.capecod.gov. Members of the public may also attend the meeting remotely through Microsoft Teams. All of that stuff is available on the same county website.
Serving our country in armed forces. Got it, already got it. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Fletcher, can you do the roll for a quorum?
Sure. Yes, Madam Speaker. Delegate Frederickson,
Yeah.
Delegate Frizel,
Here, let me say that my camera isn't working, so I will be speaking, but you won't be able to see me, I think, so.
would you like some IT assistance with that?
If someone can, I don't know what the problem is, frankly.
Okay, sure. Delegate Fuller,
Here.
Delegate Gallagher,
Here.
Deputy Speaker Gessen,
Here.
Delegate Green,
Here.
Delegate Harder,
Here.
Delegate Killian,
Here.
Delegate King.
Here.
Mike, is your mic working? Dean Omen,
Here.
Delegate O'Malley,
Here.
Delegate Sampson,
Yeah.
Delegate Ty,
Here.
Speaker Warner,
Here.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Here.
Madam Speaker, that's everyone, all 15 for 100%. Easy math.
Next on the calendar is the approval of the journals and the minutes.
So
Deputy
moved.
Speaker.
Second,
Okay. So do you roll it then?
Would you like a roll? Would you
Yes.
like a roll call?
Yes.
Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Frizel,
Abstain, I wasn't present.
Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher,
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gessen,
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
yes,
Delegate Killian,
Yes.
Delegate King,
Yes.
Dean Omen,
Present.
Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
yes,
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, that's 13 representing 89.09% of the county's population.
Thank you. Next on the business calendar is the adoption of the order of business.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Would you like a roll call, Madam Speaker?
Yes, please.
Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Frizel,
Yes,
Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gessen,
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
yes,
Delegate Killian,
Yes.
Delegate King,
Yes.
Dean Omen,
Yes.
Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
yes,
Speaker Warner,
Yes. Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
That is unanimous, Madam Speaker.
Next on the calendar is the Committee of the Whole. Deputy Speaker, do we move to go in? Do we?
I move that we enter the committee of the whole.
Second.
Thank you.
Would you like a roll call?
Yes.
Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Friesel,
Yes.
Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher,
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gasson,
Yes.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder.
Yes.
Delegate Killian.
Yes.
Delegate King,
Yes.
Dean Omen.
Yes.
Delegate O'Malley.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Next is communications for members of the public and officials. First is public comment. Do we have anyone from the public to speak on any item?
Somebody with their hand.
What's there?
There's somebody with their hand.
Yes, do we know who that is?
They should be able
Oh.
to, they should. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chris Powicki from Brewster. Just a question, will you be taking public comment during consideration of the regional policy plan? Or prior to or after it's presented?
There's a public hearing on it, so if you want to comment on that particular item, you can do so during their public hearing, or you could do so now.
I'll wait for the hearing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Somebody online.
Somebody online. I see somebody with initials of BS. Would you like to speak?
That's also around
Yes,
here.
yes, I would.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm giving some testimony in support of Delegate O'Malley's proposal, and I'm going to read it so that I will get done in as quickly as I can. Over the past year, as we were developing our proposal for the warrant for last spring's Brewster Town meeting about the need for Medicare for all in Massachusetts, Madeline Zivan and I made several presentations to our town select board and FinCom. One of the FinCom members explained that while he was in favor of the proposed legislation, he didn't feel that it was an appropriate topic to consider at town meeting. Nevertheless, Madeline and I did a presentation about town meeting, explaining why we need to pass Medicare for all in Massachusetts. Because of my history with breast cancer, I know how important it is to have affordable health care. If I hadn't just turned 65 and was therefore covered by Medicare, I wouldn't have been able to pay for my mammograms and MRIs or the necessary surgery and radiation. So I wouldn't be talking to you now, since I would be dead. Because of my work with the Cape Cod Coalition for Universal Healthcare and MassCare, I've learned that the town of Brewster would save more than $2 million annually when the bills pass. We were surprised and incredibly moved at town meeting when the FinCom member, who had earlier been opposed to including our proposal at town meeting, came to the mic and said that he had changed his mind and that this was a topic that was of extreme importance to the town. The vote of our citizens in support of our presentation was almost unanimous, given the fact that the cost of healthcare insurance is about to increase tremendously for millions of people. The necessity for enacting this bill is now critical. I hope that the Assembly of Delegates will vote in favor of Dr. O'Malley's proposal and that the delegates will work with our senators and representatives to move the bill forward in the legislature. And I thank you for your attention to this proposal.
Thank you very much, and we're glad you're here. I think there's also another person, Bonnie Shepherd.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm from Wellfleet, and I am also in the Cape Cod Coalition for Universal Healthcare. And I have personal experience with how disastrous it is when the safety net fails people who cannot deal with the bureaucracy, as happened with my eldest daughter, who ended up dying of liver disease at age 42. And for that reason, I'm with Betsy and Brian O'Malley and others. I have joined the Cape Cod Coalition for Universal Healthcare. And we urge you, please, all the delegates, to pass the resolution in favor of Medicare for All in Massachusetts. Our health system is in absolute crisis. The costs are out of control. And the only way to save, to save Massachusetts health system and really the whole country's health system is to have a single payer system. Just as every other industrialized country in the world except the US does. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate your coming today to share your opinion on this issue. Are there any others who would like to speak to this issue? I think there is a Stephen Buckley. Stephen Buckley?
Yes, I even
Oh,
spelled
you
my
are.
name wrong. Sorry.
Oh,
I will
I'm
speak
sorry.
later. Thank you for concerning if we're allowed to comment on the draft RPP. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Anyone? Okay. Next on the calendar is a public hearing on proposed ordinance 2025-13, an amendment of the regional policy plan per section 8H of chapter 716 of the Acts of 1989, as amended, and chapter C, the process to review and amend the regional policy plan. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone here from the public to speak on the proposed ordinance?
Thank you. Again, Chris Powicki from Town of Brewster. First, I want to note that the Cape Cod Commission has run a lengthy process to produce this draft regional policy plan. I think they did a great job on this process in terms of engaging stakeholders, holding focus groups, as well as holding public hearings at the beginning and at the end of the process and maybe somewhere in between. I think that this version of the RPP is a substantive improvement over the last version. And it does, to my knowledge, address a lot of the comments that were received during the process, as well as some of the comments that were submitted on the draft RPP itself. As a member of the Sierra Club's Cape Cod and Islands group, we did submit comments, and we also held a couple of public forums over the last year. And some of the discussions at those public forums are reflected in the RPP. And certainly some of the comments we received were addressed by commission staff during the public comment process. So I think this is a good step forward. That said, and there's always a that said when I'm speaking, unfortunately, I think that we're kind of fooling ourselves if we believe this regional policy plan is enough to support the vision of the future of Cape Cod as a place of vibrant, sustainable, and healthy communities and a protected natural environment. I think over the last 7-8 years, and especially since the onset of the pandemic, there's been a substantive change in the pace of development, in the amount of traffic here on the Cape, and obviously, the crushing issues that we're facing with housing affordability are not getting any better. And there are other, pressing concerns addressing climate change, lots of other things. And so I guess I want to say that, if you go forward and approve this regional policy plan, it's not necessarily going to get us on the path toward achieving the vision that's set out in the regional policy plan. And that's one of the questions that Sierra Club explored during the process and offered input on. And so I suggested in some of my comments on the plan earlier that maybe this regional policy plan is a sort of an interim step, and it recommends actions and measures that need to be addressed by 2030, which at that point, I think we're going to be undergoing even faster change. The bridges hopefully will be under construction. Wastewater infrastructure will be in place, and I think that we'll be facing some new growth and development pressures. I'm not expecting that things will get better with housing affordability unless we do something to make better use of our existing housing stock. And so one thing I think that I want you to carry with you today as you think about this regional policy plan and what happens in the time between when this regional policy plan is approved and in the next 5 years is what sort of work the Assembly of Delegates might do to help push and assist the Commission in creating a regional policy plan and a framework for that regional policy plan to be implemented that is really consistent with the vision I articulated a minute ago. I think that, sustainability needs to be in mind. Finite resources needs to be in mind, and that's one of the changes to the growth policy that is in the regional policy plan. Recognition that we're again facing finite resource issues. But one of the things I want you guys to think about is when the Commission exercises its authority, is it always exercising the authority it should? And the Cape Cod Commission Act is pretty clear that the Commission has development of regional impact purview over a broad range of developments. There's also in the Cape Cod Commission Act, as enacted, a provision that allows for waivers. And I'm not quite sure yet why the Cape Cod Commission is not reviewing the Cape Cod Bridges program as a development of regional impact. If ever there's been a project that will have region-wide impacts, it is the Bridges program. And I haven't gotten an explanation of why there's no DRI, but if there was some sort of waiver granted, there's supposed to be a public hearing, and there's supposed to be a rationale for why no DRI review was conducted. And I think if you look at some of the development that's been ongoing in the Hyannis area and some of the other development that we're seeing in other areas of the Cape, we have to, give some thought to what are the thresholds that the Commission is reviewing projects under. What are the development agreements it's establishing with local communities, and what sort of liberty does it give them? And does that liberty run counter ultimately in its implementation to the goals and objectives that are in the RPP? In Sierra Club's comments on the RPP, we asked that the RPP be enforced in all its provisions on all projects that come before the Commission. And again, there are waivers granted. There are objectives that are waived. And I think it's really important in the next 5 years to take this RPP, take a good look at it, take a good look at the Commission, how it's operating, what it's regulating and what it's not regulating, and figure out for the next regional policy plan, how do we get ready to implement a new regional policy plan that will actually help us achieve the future vision. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And we have somebody else? Oh, I think that Stephen Buckley is next.
Okay, yes, Stephen Buckley from Chatham. That's contrary to what you see on the screen there. It's Buckley. And you think I know how to spell my last name. Anyway, I was in a rush. So, and I didn't want to sign off while Mr. Powicki was making his comments. Yes, I grew up in Chatham, but after college, I got a job in Washington, D.C., where I spent the next 25 years working in environmental offices at 5 different federal agencies. And a lot of that work was involving environmental impact statements and assorted documents and public engagement. And anyway, so when we moved back to Massachusetts, because my wife said, I thought if I married you, we'd live on Cape Cod. I said, oh yeah, right. So we moved back, and since that time, I've been attending about 10 years worth of planning meetings for the bridges, because I knew that brand new bridges would have probably the same kind of impact on the same scale that the current bridges had after they were opened in 1935. And so, yeah, and it would affect, yes, not just Cape Cod, but the southeastern Massachusetts. So I said, this is certainly they're going to do something. There'll be an environmental impact statement on this, and it'll be following the process and so forth and so on. So anyway, I've been looking at it through the eyes of someone who's been through the process, who knows what's going on, and has noted where they have, yes, basically been the Massachusetts DOT has done public outreach, but it's been I would say, a mile wide and an inch deep as far as that goes. So what I want to point out is that I'm not that familiar with the development of regional impact process, but it's my understanding that the Mass DOT did their document, which is an environmental impact report. Federal Highway Administration is going to be coming out with almost an identical document in a few weeks or days or something like that. And they're both going to be about 3,000 pages. So I don't know how deeply the county gets into it, but I'd like to echo what Mr. Powicki said, is that if it appears that the commission staff is attempting to sidestep or waive or get out of doing the regional perspective, which I'll tell you from attending the last 10 years of meetings, I've been like the only person from the Lower Cape or anywhere beyond Hyannis at these meetings. It's always been about how do we clear up the traffic congestion in Bourne? And it's always been through that lens. So, and the environmental impact report that's been done, that's 3,000 pages, basically says, oh, these new bridges won't encourage anybody to do anything differently. Or maybe they'll bring their money and then they'll leave without providing any nitrogen to our ponds, that type of talk, which is ridiculous. And so I'm hoping that the county will step up and say, wait a minute, no, this is going to have the same effect probably that the old bridges had. And we're not just going to rubber stamp and go along type of things. Because yes, I can understand how 84% of people would like new bridges. That's what it says in the draft regional policy plan. But you can get wider bridges, and everybody won't have head-on collisions. But at the same time, it's going to be more attractive for people to buy second homes, and that means more. It'll be even harder for people who live here or who work here to live here. And it'll have all these things. So whatever happens, I'm not against the bridges. Just want to do it eyes wide open. And so far, the Cape Cod Commission staff has been doing it with blinders on. So that's my thoughts. Thank you very much. I hope that the members here, including the new member from Chatham, will be as curious about what's going on and not, since this is going to be recorded for all eternity and maybe even deciphered by artificial intelligence, they'll say, what were they thinking back then? And, well, maybe they weren't. Hopefully,
Well, thank you
you'll be
very
able to
much,
show how
Mr.
curious you are.
Buckley. We
Thanks very
appreciate
much.
your comments, and I'm wondering if there's anyone else who would like to speak on the proposed ordinance? Executive Director Christy Senatori, would you like to make any comments at this point?
Good afternoon, Christy Senatori, Executive Director with the Cape Cod Commission. I don't have any further comment. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for Executive Director? Oh. Lily? Oh, excuse me, Delegate, Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, Director Senatori, for being here and for, I see several of your staff members online, and Mr. Tupper is here as well. I have a question that two members of the public have brought up that the standing committee did not address. And I would like to ask you about that further. I mean, so according to what Mr. Pawicki just said, the Cape Cod Commission has a waiver to not review a DRI on the bridges. First of all, is that true? And if so, there were revisions to the regional policy plan in that direction, could that change? Thank you.
To the speaker, I'm happy to respond to that. I know the item on your agenda is the regional policy plan, so I don't necessarily want to go into discussion about a different project. However, the Cape Cod Bridges program is not subject to development of regional impact review due to preemption by federal and state law. The commission will continue to be extensively involved in this project and its review in other capacities, including, but not limited to, as a member of the Cape Cod Bridges Advisory Group and as a consulting party to pursuant to the Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. So.
Thank you.
Could I follow up? Just to be clear, because this is an important topic to a vast majority of the public. Is there any aspect of the bridges where there would be a DRI that the commission would review under the current regional policy plan or revised one that we're voting on right now?
So I believe I answered the question. I'm not sure if there's another question in there that I missed, but
So no is the answer.
we're not reviewing the Cape Cod Canal Bridges program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything for our executive director? No? Okay, thank you very much. So the public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Next is the communication from the regional commissioners, administrator, and directors with an update on the fiscal year 2027 budget process. Michael Dutton, County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, delegates. Just giving you an update. I think I've given the delegates a little bit of a preview of our proposed revised process. And I will emphasize that it's not anything, it's a revised process to do not anything other than try to streamline the process and take a little bit of the burden off of everyone, quite frankly, but mostly the department heads as they try to run their departments and formulate the FY27 budget at the same time. So I will tell you that in true government fashion, we are already running a little late on our budget process. But there's a good reason for that. The commissioners did not take up the proposed timeline and the proposed changes at their last meeting. They did the meeting before that, but they did take it up after that. So I will say that that we broke, very generally, we broke the two budget processes apart. We have a capital planning and capital budget process, and we have an operating budget process. So the charter calls for an operating budget message that the commissioners adopt. It doesn't say anything about a capital budget message. So I thought it would be appropriate to add a capital budgeting message from the commissioners to the departments as part of these, sort of minor changes. And this year we did adopt, or the commissioners did adopt today, actually, a capital message. And I can tell you that it, for the first year, it really lays out what our internal process has been in terms of capital planning. And we are actually pretty much through our major capital budget process right now. But that's in the side. So it does lay out really the process, how we collect projects or proposed capital purchases, what a capital purchase is. It outlines that, and then it defines the matrix that we use to sort of rank those projects. And there is some complexity to it, but that I won't bother explaining to you now. I'll come back and explain that when we present the capital budget itself. So anyway, this year, that is the capital budget message, really is the process that we are using and we have used over the past couple of years in order to develop the capital budget itself. So that's on the capital side. And we'll continue to do a capital budget message in future years. I think those messages will be a little more policy oriented. The commissioners can set a policy about where we want to focus our capital spending, and then the capital request will come in based on those policy directives. The other side, the operating budget statement or the operating budget message is, as I mentioned, something that's laid out in the charter, is something that's required as part of the budget process. So what we have done essentially is, and again, I've reiterating, I think what I've already mentioned at prior meetings, we lay out our strategic planning priorities. The commissioners lay that out, and then we relay those to the department heads. That's occurring as we speak, and so that's partly why we're a little behind. But the administration sends out to the department heads very clear instructions about how to develop the budget, what the budget priorities are, the operating budget priorities are, and what the department should assume in terms of standard increases. And I'll highlight one of them is health insurance, and I'm sure Delegate O'Malley won't be surprised to hear that we are projecting potential increases in budget in health insurance premiums potentially at 25%. And each of your towns, I think each of your towns is looking at potentially an increase of 25% as well. So because I believe all of you are part of the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group. So there are some policy issues that the health group has to make some decisions on, and coverages of certain drugs specifically. And so we're looking at the upper end of 25%. We're looking at more than likely a 12 to 15% increase, which is bad enough. But when you juxtapose that against 25%, 12% looks fantastic. So if I come to you and I say it's only 12%, and I'm gleeful, that'll tell you something. In any case, we outline some of the specific issues within that budget document, within that budget message to the department, so that they know how to construct their budgets. We will receive all the departmental requests, if all goes well, by December 5th. And we will meet then internally with each department to go over in very detailed way that their budget requests. We are not intending to have the commissioners meet on a weekly basis, as they have for a number of years, to review every department's budget. I would rather present the entire operating budget for the county in one sitting with the commissioners and go through as much detail as I possibly can during that one sitting. Invariably, what's happened is department heads will come in and do presentations, explain what they do, which is all great, but I'd rather they come in throughout the year explaining what they do, how they expend the budgets, what their programs are, similar to what the assembly does, quite honestly, because you will have department heads come in and explain certain programs. And I think that's very useful. I think that it gives the assembly and it gives the commissioners a frame of reference when they actually do have to look at the budget. But invariably, what has been happening is the department heads will come in and explain all the programs, and we never really talk about budgets. So seeing that, I figured that the department heads have all year to come in and talk about their programs and projects. And really, we should, if we're going to focus on budgets, let's focus on budgets. And so I will carry the ball on that. And sometime in January, I will be presenting January either the 21st or the 28th. I'll be presenting the budget in detail to the commissioners. Obviously, they'll be aware of the activities and the discussions going on with department heads, but we won't be having those weekly meetings and having all the departments come in. Obviously, they'll have the option, same as the Assembly certainly has the option to ask for specific departments to come in, and they will have that option for 3 weeks or so. And they will then send, the commissioners will then adopt their budget and send it to the Assembly of Delegates by their second meeting, which I think is also called out in the charter. Then you will have February through April is sort of the timeline that none of this is different really in terms of timeline. So it's roughly the same as it has been for a number of years. But then the Assembly of Delegates will certainly have an opportunity to dig into the numbers. I will come similar to what I did with the commissioners. I will come here. I will present all the budgets right across the departments. And again, the Assembly has every opportunity to ask specific departments to come in and do a deeper dive. If you want to do a deeper dive into certain departments, that is certainly within your purview, obviously. And then pretty much the same process that the Assembly has had. You'll go through your deliberating process. You'll send certain departmental budgets to committee. Committee will come back, make recommendations to the full Assembly. You may choose to make amendments, you may not, and then you'll go through your voting process, same as you've done forever and a day. So that's essentially the process. Not a lot of changes other than instead of all of our great department heads coming in, you'll have to deal with pretty much me. And I apologize for that. But I do think that frees up departments' time and allows them to sort of focus on what we employ them to do, allows me to present to you and do what I'm employed to do. So it's just sort of allocating the work to the people that should be doing the work. So that's essentially the process, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions on the process.
Are there any questions on the process? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm appreciative. I know that this was coming in this direction with freeing up the department heads to do their work, and I think I'm appreciative of that. I think it's a great idea, and I hope it works and helps them save time for their own particular job. But you've outlined how you're going to do the expense side of the budget. Have you formulated the revenue side yet? And I know that that's according to the commissioners a couple of meetings ago, that they expect a very challenging revenue budget. How far have you gotten to with the registry of deeds and other functions? How close are you to knowing what the budget revenue side might be? Thank you.
That's a great question. And on the revenue side, I think as the delegates know, a percentage of our revenue comes from assessments to the towns, because I'm sure your towns are always sort of mentioning that to you. And then the largest percentage comes from registry of deeds and the fees associated with property transfers that come through the registry of deeds. We have, and the registry has been very good. They tend to be very conservative about their estimates, and rightly so. I think over the last 5 years or post-COVID, I think there have been, they have been conservative, but I think everybody has been sort of shocked by what's transpired. We see sort of the confluence of an increase in the volume of transfers and the price of transfers. So usually, when the economy it might be good, you see volume go up, price might be stable. When you see the economy tank, sometimes the volume decreases, but sometimes your higher end your higher end sales increase. And so there's been sort of this balancing over the last 5 years. We've seen, that confluence just take off, and the revenues coming into the Registry of Deeds have far outpaced the conservative estimates that the registry has provided. So, but to answer your question more precisely, I think we're pretty close to getting revenue figures from the registry. Obviously, we have the revenue figures from the assessment side. Those are easier to figure out. And the county has, really very little additional revenue, unlike your towns, where you've got, real estate property tax, very, very predictable number. And you've got some state aid, which within reason is a predictable number. And your big, sort of question mark are your local receipts. What you're going to get in for permit fees, building permits, licenses, and so forth. That tends to be the one that fluctuates the most. And your motor vehicle is another one that can fluctuate a lot, but for some reason, motor vehicle excise is continuing to go through the roof. So the county's obviously a little different. We don't have the stability, the same stability in revenue that the towns have. And that's just the way it is. Nothing we're going to do about changing that. But I think it's then becomes incumbent on us to be very conservative about the figures that we are relying on from the Registry of Deeds. So I've given you a really long answer and said almost nothing. So.
Ma'am, just one follow-up too. What about the surety of the federal side of this? It's to the tune of something like $12 million last year. Is there any certainty? Is there any thought process of best scenario versus worst scenario cases with the federal money?
Well, worst scenario is nothing. But I do think we've gotten some assurance from a number of contacts that I talked to in DC that the sort of the worst of these cuts, these mostly grant cuts or formula grant, whether they're formula grants or competitive grants, most of those that as they deal with the county, as it pertains to the county, most of those were over, and we won't necessarily see the federal government cutting more in terms of grants. We have, knock on wood, we have fared pretty well. Obviously, we've had some scares and some slight reductions in our COC grants and in our everybody knows about the AmeriCorps grant. Went away completely, then it came back a little, then it went away, and so we're running a program that is now quote unquote fully funded through the AmeriCorps grant. We'll obviously keep a very close eye on that one in particular, because that one is not included in the budget proposal, the administration's budget proposal, federal budget proposal for next year. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. We think there's enough incentive for Congress to add that back in. In fact, there's enough incentive for Congress to add most stuff back in that the administration may have proposed to cut. And I think it probably not, although I'm certainly no political prognosticator, but it doesn't go unnoticed that it's an election year. And so there's quite a bit of assumption that we won't see major cuts to federal grants at this point.
Thank you.
Are there any other
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Dunn, for being here. You just raised a good point. So as far as I think the Assembly and the commissioners may be concerned, do you see value in the Assembly writing a resolution that with letters to Congress to the importance of AmeriCorps?
That's actually a great question. I think probably there will be a value to that. And I think especially as it is in conjunction with, thousands of other communities that benefit from the AmeriCorps program. The question I think is really timing and when that's most appropriate. And I will, once I know that the answer to that, I'll certainly forward it along. But I do think there would be value in that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Harder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You said, the potential for astronomical healthcare raises. Does that take effect January or June?
Increase in our rates, we're part of the municipal buying group essentially. So it encompasses the Cape and I believe the islands, or most of the towns on the island, and Nantucket, I believe. But so the messages that we're getting, that's where we're getting messages from about the huge increases. And those increases would start, I believe, on July 1st. The fiscal year, our fiscal year, I believe, but I can confirm that.
Thank you. Yes, Delegate O'Malley.
On the same subject, Ms. Dutton, and you and I have talked about this over the last number of years, the real increase in the health insurance costs that we all pay, the municipalities pay, has been buffered by using the reserves, the finite reserves that the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group maintains. They're very substantial, but they're not infinite. You used 25% as a worst case scenario, and then you said, we hoping it's only as little as 12 to 15. Would that be through use of those same reserves?
Actually, I'm not sure what they are anticipating using for reserves, but I think the delta between 25% and 12% is mostly the use of the Ozempic drugs, the weight loss drugs.
Right.
And those are proving to be just skyrocketing.
Yep.
And I think that's basically the issue at this point.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question for Administrator Dutton on the budget specifically? Okay, I would like to ask if there's anything from this morning's meeting that you might like to share from the commissioners' meeting.
There is always something to share. Question is, where did I put it? Well, there's a lot to tell you and it's all sitting on my desk, I think, but I will, from memory, the commissioners heard from Director McGuire of the Cooperative Extension on the wildfire grants that we've received. If you layer the grants together, it is just a little bit shy of $200,000. That will update the entire Cape's regional planning on fire prevention and fire brush fires, wildfires, I guess. And that's exciting. They're going to get that process started. They'll be coming to each of your towns and asking or holding public input sessions, asking. Oh, thank you. No, I could have done that. Yeah, the Community Wildfire Defense Grant update. So we did receive something from the state DCR as well as you funded something through the operating budget last year as well. So they've received additional funding, which gets it up to about $200,000. There was quite a long presentation on the municipal fire training PFAS remediation project and quite a detailed with maps and graphs and so forth. So I won't try to replicate that, but the county, I can assure you that the county is certainly doing its due diligence on this. I think after a period of years where we did not do our due diligence. So we've invested a lot of time and effort into that project. We have engaged all of the stakeholders as well as we possibly can, shared all of the data that we've generated, and we've generated a lot of data through testing, and we can now map the way that water flows through that site. We can map the impacts on the flow that's created by the town of Barnstable wastewater treatment plant. and the hydraulic pressures that the discharge causes on the normal flow there. So there is a lot of information shared with folks on that, which is the way it should be. And where that ends up, we're not quite sure yet. We're currently waiting, and it came up today during the meeting, we're currently waiting for some direction from DEP on essentially what the definition of our site is. Is our site merely the Fire Training Academy, or is our site the Mary Dunn Wells? Is our site the wastewater that comes out of the treated wastewater that comes out of the treatment plant? And those are complex questions. And DEP it's a major question to DEP, and DEP has pushed that right up to their top ranks. And we've been told that it might be a while before they really have a policy decision there. So anyway, we do have one supplemental budget request that came to you. We have, as you know, we're doing an exterior renovation on the Superior Court building. It's a long time coming, and it needs it badly. That triggered us having to vacate that building. It also triggers the Superior Court having to vacate that building for what we hope is 10 months. It could push past a year. So we've been spending a lot of time working with the state trial court to try to figure out alternative housing for the Superior Court, which you can imagine that's complex enough. But it requires that we have to get out of that building. So we have available space in the Registry of Deeds building in the lower level, also called the basement. So we are proposing that we renovate that space, and we will need that for all of finance operation. We will also need that for IT. The IT department has until March to vacate the innovation building. So that is, we're looking at housing both of those folks, both of those departments in the garden level of the Registry of Deeds. Hopefully for a small period of time, but the renovation to the space will allow us to use it as swing space as we try to further implement whatever the commissioners decide on the facilities master plan. So we're just trying to create as much space, working space, as possible so that we have the ability to bring people in and do their work. So I didn't tell you how it's about $170,000 to do that project, but you'll see that coming up at your next meeting, I believe. The commissioners voted the revised SNAP resolution, and knock on wood that we're in a good place there. And I can tell you this, the board has also decided that starting in January, we're going to try to do what I probably shouldn't call a traveling roadshow. We are going to hold commissioner meetings. The second commissioner meeting of the month will be held in, your towns. So we're trying to get to every town over the course of a year plus. So we're going to work directly with the town's IT departments, whoever does space allocations, and try to reserve space for the fourth Wednesday at 10 o'clock in towns. I think we're trying to start our first one in Falmouth, so we'll be there. And the operating budget, capital budget statements, I mentioned that. And they made, on their consent agenda, they approved a number of items, nothing rising to huge importance, other than we did receive the Human Services Department received an additional $150,000 through the state legislature to fund the SHINE program and make sure. So it was a little extra funding for that, which was well received. And yeah, and so that's it. We are looking at an additional amount of dredging in Mashpee to finish that project, and the commissioners approved that additional dredging. So
Thank you very much. Do we have questions for Administrator Dutton? Yes.
Regarding the, thank you for the presentation. Regarding the wildfire preparedness study, do we anticipate any required additional funding in our own budget, or is this entirely from grants?
I don't anticipate anything more than what I think you've appropriated for this fiscal year, I think you appropriated $15,000. Certainly not looking for anything more. So within the grants that we have received and the appropriation, we've got enough.
Great. I think the Outer Cape is grateful to know that that's still on track. Thank you.
Delegate Harder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When are you planning on having people move to the Registry of Deeds, not in like the dead of winter?
No, that's a good question. And the timing is a little up in the air because we are not sure exactly when the exterior project is going to start. So in the ideal world, we would go out to bid on the exterior project in next month or January. That was our original plan. I'm not sure that we're confident that the Superior Courts will have, sort of their ducks in a row in order to do their move. So I imagine we'll be pushing into spring. It won't be January or February.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right.
Thank you very much.
To the Assembly convenes. Do we have to say, please note? Okay. And the reports of officers and committees. First, I would just like to say a short mention to you. Everyone has been given an updated committee member list. And thank you to everyone who was flexible in being able to work this out so that we have a functional group going forward. And I appreciate that. And now Stephen is part of the committee, standing committee, and he'll have assignments that he can get into. And there is also a new contact list. Because some numbers have changed, et cetera. So the list that you received tonight is the most up-to-date we have. If there's something on it that is incorrect for yours, please let Fletcher, Owen Fletcher know so that he can make the adjustment and get it out to everybody. But I think we got everybody. And I see Delegate Frizel.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Both the committee list and contact lists should be sent to all of us because those of us who are not present at the meeting, I don't think we received it.
Appreciate your pointing that out. We can make sure that the people that are not, okay, good. Next is the report from the Assembly Clerk.
To Delegate Frizel's point, thank you for pointing that out. I think there's already one change that needs to be made to the committee list. And so, not the committee list, I'm sorry, the contact list. And so the assistant clerk and I will take care of that. And as soon as we do, we'll make sure it also goes out to everybody as well. I did reach out to all of you about informing town managers, select board members, other town officials that we have scheduled Assembly Economic Affairs Committee meeting for December 10th. That's the soonest we could have it because of the Thanksgiving holiday. I did receive some comments back from individual delegates. So because it's not on the agenda tonight for discussion, I wanted to let everybody know I won't be sending anything out to the towns until I check with you individually about what you'd like sent to your town or whether you'd like to talk to them yourself. So I won't be sending anything out on my end until I check back with you before sending anything out to the towns themselves on that. So I think that's all that I have for tonight under this item.
Delegate Green.
I wanted to thank the clerk for that last statement and the assistant clerk for that last statement. That's a courtesy that I appreciate being extended. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next is a report from the Assembly of Delegates Standing Committee on Government Affairs and Rules, meeting of November 17th. Deputy Speaker Gessen, can you read the report as Vice Chair of the committee because I'm currently presiding?
Absolutely, Madam Speaker. The Assembly of Delegates Standing Committee on Governmental Affairs and Rules met remotely Wednesday, November 17th at 3 p.m. That's Monday, November 17th at 3 p.m. The committee considered proposed ordinance 2025-13, amendment of the regional policy plan per section 8H of chapter 716 of the Acts of 1989 as amended, and chapter C. The committee acknowledged the extensive public outreach undertaken by the Cape Cod Commission. Discussion focused primarily on concerns regarding the referenced Cape Cod Ocean Management Plan. The commission staff clarified that the RPP includes a recommendation to update the OMP and that current regulatory frameworks, including development of regional impact reviews, address development in sensitive areas. The committee voted to forward a favorable recommendation of the regional policy plan to the full assembly as presented. And Madam Speaker, on that point, I'm going to move that we approve proposed ordinance 2025-13.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you to the Deputy Speaker for reading the report. I am a little miffed, I guess, that we had a hearing today, yet the committee met on Monday. And so we're just hearing from the public, and any objections or any comments that the public is making is after the recommendation that the committee made to the full assembly. And because I think the weight of the comments that were made today, although they were few, really deserve some thought by the assembly, because I think those are, I do appreciate the fact that the commission has done so much work, has, spent so much time in developing the revisions to the regional policy plan. And also that Director Senatori gave us a link to the spreadsheet that they diligently made after the proposed draft, which is sent to us and for our approval. But when I saw the spreadsheet, I saw comments from one of the presenters today, Mr. Pawicki, and in my read of the spreadsheet and the responses from the commission to his points, I thought that perhaps they were all addressed in the comments, and obviously they were not. And then we also heard from a citizen in Chatham as well on this topic of the bridges. I saw some of the delegates nodding when both presenters were talking, and I have concerns. What I would like to do is make, and also I expressed concerns at the standing committee as well. I mean, I've been involved with the RPP since the beginning. I knew that it was coming to the assembly for a vote. I thought this is something that is really important to our towns. We all should be following it. As chair of the Natural Resources Standing Committee, I took a special interest in the RPP and did ask for committee meetings, which did not happen. So I would like to make an amendment or that we postpone the vote until the December 3rd meeting, so so the public understands that we take their comments seriously, we think about them before we vote, and we don't just take the comments coming out of a standing committee prior to a public hearing and vote on those recommendations. I think we owe the public that at the very least. I really do. So I'd like to make a motion that we postpone the vote until December 3rd, which we can do. On this ordinance. We
Clerk
can do
Fletcher,
that.
Can you speak to that?
We have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Certainly any item that's on the agenda for the business calendar be voted on, someone can make a motion to postpone. I do want to point out that we have a 45-day trigger to approve the ordinance under the Cape Cod Commission Act. And under that act, no changes can be made to the RPP by the Assembly because it's already been through a process at the Cape Cod Commission and been voted on by the commission itself. And so what the Assembly can do is either approve the plan or refer it back to the Cape Cod Commission in that 45-day window for further study and redraft. That's all we can do. And that without a special meeting, that December 3rd date is the last thing that we can do that.
Delegate Frizel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, question, if this motion made by Delegate Green were approved, does that mean that there would be another meeting of the Government Affairs Committee to consider today's public hearing comments and make a further report to the Assembly prior to December 3rd?
Clerk Fletcher, do you have?
That'd be up to you, Madam Speaker. That'd be up to you if you want to schedule.
Oh, if I want to schedule it.
Could I ask for a point of order? Yeah, I just want to clarify. I thought we had a motion and a second on the floor to take a vote. And doesn't that have to be acted on? I mean, can anybody make another motion that supersedes that motion?
If it's a motion to postpone the vote, then yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's in order.
Okay.
Order to amend, yeah. The original motion, not a new motion, which we've had, right? So you can either make a motion to amend that original motion, right? Which you wouldn't be able to do in this case because it's the regional policy plan and you can't amend it. But someone can always make a motion to postpone.
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to just point out that at the time that we received it and we knew the timeline that was required for it to be considered and passed was, I think, a 45-day window. And I know that Delegate Green and I did discuss this, and there was also additional discussion over the fact that the standing committee would actually meet and vote before the meeting that we just had, the public meeting that we just had on it. And that was determined based on the fact that the Cape Cod Commission, over the preparation of the final documents, spent many meetings all over the Cape, both geographically and in different kinds of constituencies, asking for different feedback. And it was, the last I counted, it was over 20 meetings. It may have been substantially more than that. That was all done in advance of actually writing the document to make sure that they had input from not only geographic stakeholders, but also from different groups. And at that time, based on the time frame that we had and the idea that we really didn't have a big window of opportunity to see if we could lengthen it at all, I felt that was legitimately okay to do because of that fact. also raises the question, will we do it again? Probably not, but we will have the opportunity as we prepare these to let people know this will be a meeting that will take place at this time. This is when the open meeting will take place on the assembly floor. And we'll have a better handle on being able to do that. There were some mitigating circumstances, as everyone knows, with the speaker leaving and then, some juggling around to get things back in order again. And because of how important this particular subject is, I didn't feel that we had the obligation to have one portion of it stop the entire process. And a part of that also comes, as I shared with Delegate Green, that when I first became a member of the assembly, I didn't really quite realize what it meant for my vote versus others and stuff. And people said, well, because you have a certain number of things, you become in the middle of a lot of the votes. And of course, probably the very first vote I had, a decision that I made that happened to do with the Cape Cod Commission, was based on something equally small, but important in the overall thing. And because of that, it didn't go through. So I went back and reread the document again to look at all the other very important things that are on the subject. And I can't honestly justify saying we have one reason we're doing this. We have no ability, from what I understand from Clerk Fletcher, to alter it or to change it or to have anything else happen at this point. So to postpone it yet again, it seems to me not the right answer. And if we are really looking at what the communities all get from this and what they need as a guideline over the next 5 years. I think if things had changed a little bit differently the way this happened this year, then it would have been okay. But I think that it's up to the assembly now as to whether or not which direction they want to go in. Do they want to approve the amendment that has been offered by Delegate Green and postpone the vote on this particular thing until the 3rd, knowing that that's the last possible date that we can do it? Number one. So if anything goes awry, there's nothing else we can do. It'll be we have to vote at that point. And number two, knowing that we can't change anything. If I felt that we could change something at this point, or that it offered an opportunity to relook at it in a different way, then I might be inclined to suggest that we do that. But from my point of view, I think that voting on it today is the right answer. And we've all had an opportunity, except for those that might have been, away or have been traveling or to look at it, because the document has been sent to us and we've had it. And I have had to read it a couple of times because there's quite a bit of information in there. And because this also did not have the kind of overview that the last time we received it 5 years ago did, and that it's more precise in certain areas, and some new areas have been added, which are very helpful. I didn't see the need to move this from the agendas that we had. So I would vote for it on today's agenda if that becomes the case of what the assembly wishes to do. Thank you. Yes, Delegate Friesel.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Speaker. So I thought, and the clerk can probably correct my history, he has a better recall than I do about this, but I thought, while we can't amend the language, but we can send it back with comments, in that we've done that in the past. We can send it back with comments. You don't just say rejected. You explain why there's concern on the part of the assembly, and why it feels it cannot approve it at this time. So there is an explanation that's sent. It's not just a pure veto without any explanation. Is that right?
Addressing you with that.
I've been here like 4 years at this point. I think There was one action that the commission sent over where we didn't approve it and sent something back that was about signatures. Yeah, at this point, all you can do is either approve it or not approve it, or you send it back to the commission and they'll have to have another process after all of this work to resend us something else. So, but that's our only procedural choice, is my understanding. We've been through this a couple of times. You've got to send it back with comments under the statute, but it goes back to the commission for a full they have to have another process on top of the one they've already had if we don't approve it, is my understanding.
I'd like to get back to Delegate Harder, if I may.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, the comments we heard today were addressed. The first comment asked us to work on certain things during the next RPP process over 5 years. That we can do. The second comment was about not overseeing the economic, environmental impact of the bridges. And as Director Senatori explained, she doesn't have the ability to do that. This is a federal and state project. And the third point I'd like to make is that I cannot tell you, because I'm a policy wonk, I can't tell you how many meetings I went to when Director Senatori and other commission staff were holding the hearings on the regional policy plan. They were thorough. They were with different stakeholders, and I can tell you that many of the concerns I heard were addressed in this RPP. And I believe I only saw. So I attended all these meetings. I saw the work they put in. The questions today have been answered. We can't change it unless you want to send it back to them with comments that have already been addressed, whether it was today or whether it was in the committee meeting that we had about this. And so I'm seriously begging you, let's not make them have to do any more work than the work they already did thoroughly and competently. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Harder. Delegate O'Malley.
It seems to me that this kind of document, the RPP, is the result of what is inevitably a plan. It's a planning document. It is inevitably going to be an iterative process. That is to say, anything we put down today, we may find 6 months from now, yeah, we really need to work on that for the next one. That's what's going to happen. That is never going to end. There are always going to be new circumstances that develop, new questions that come up, new challenges, developments that we hadn't foreseen. I don't think holding off our approval for another few weeks is going to substantively change anything. And I think we should vote on it. They've done a lot of work. I think it's time to give it the go-ahead and address, if there are outstanding questions, address those for the next, it will come around again for the next version of this RPP.
Thank you. Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And yes, you're absolutely correct. We did have several conversations about this, and I appreciate your point of view, and you understand my point of view as well. And I don't agree respectfully with Delegate Harder that the questions were answered today. I sincerely don't. And as well, I did raise a point that I must raise at this meeting to put it on the public record, that the ocean management plan on page 59 is the Cape Cod Ocean Management Plan. I know that the commission has intentions to update this, and it is based on the technology of 2011. And what it does is it leaves my town and the adjoining towns at least vulnerable, very vulnerable, because it's based on old technology, both for development offshore on the ocean side, which was not even something that I was thinking about, or probably anyone in my town at that time, and also for development in the Bay, which was designated for offshore wind off of Jeremy Point and Wellfleet. And there's other places in the Cape Cod Bay as well. And this is just based on old technology. And what I really was asking for since the beginning of the RPP process, with their questionnaire out to the public, and during the process in various meetings, and also in my comments to them with the draft RPP, and when they came to us and presented to us on November 5th, was that they just put a statement in there. And so I personally have to oppose approving this RPP and send it back with comments personally. But I urge you to just think about the fact that, that your town also could be vulnerable with this ocean management plan that is out of date. And just if they could, but I can't make an amendment for them to change that. I've urged them to do this along the process. And also the various points that were brought up by the two speakers today at the public hearing. So I urge you to just postpone the vote, think about it, and then come back and vote the way your conscience tells you on the 3rd of December. And we can do that.
Delegate Killian?
Speaking to Delegate Green's passion for the subject, would we be able to pass this RPP with a recommendation or with the suggestion, I guess we'll call it a recommendation, that the ocean management situation be addressed in a certain amount of time? Because I believe that's the crux of her concern, is that it won't be addressed soon or soon enough or whatever, because obviously it's not going to be addressed in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if we could make that comment upon our approval, perhaps that will alleviate some of Delegate Green's concern.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To Delegate Killian's concerns, at the Economic Affairs Committee meeting, that was presented to Director Senatori, and she informed us that, in fact, that is currently being worked on as a separate part. It's like, I don't know if your towns have, the towns do their local comprehensive plan, and within that is a housing plan, and sometimes they're not done at the same time. But Director Senatori informed us at that meeting that she is updating the ocean management plan. So thank you.
Delegate Green?
I think
this will be the last
okay.
comment. and
Well,
then
I mean,
question.
I think with all due deference to Delegate Harder, at the last assembly meeting where Director Senatori spoke, she said that the state is updating the ocean management plan, and after the state updates that, then the commission will. And to Delegate Killian's point, that is not going to happen in 2025. It's not going to happen this year, 2025. Unless it's magically instantaneously going to happen, it's not going to happen this year, as stated on their website. So I just, for clarification, I would appreciate if Delegate Killian's point could be addressed to Director Senatori.
Okay, I think we should put the amendment to a vote.
Would you like a roll call, Madam Speaker? All right,
Yes.
Delegate Frederickson?
Can you repeat what we're actually voting on?
This is on the motion to postpone the vote on this item until December 3rd. That's the vote that I'm calling the roll for. So a yes would be to postpone it to December 3rd. A no would be to continue the discussion tonight and keep moving on the question itself.
No.
Delegate Frizel,
No.
Delegate Fuller,
No.
Delegate Gallagher,
No.
Deputy Speaker Gessen,
No.
Delegate Green,
Yes.
Delegate Harder,
No.
Delegate Killian,
No.
Delegate King,
No.
Dean Omen,
No.
Delegate O'Malley,
No.
Delegate Sampson,
No.
Delegate Ty, Delegate Warner, Speaker Warner,
No.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
No.
That motion fails. 14 members voting against, representing 98.44% of the county's population. So now you're back onto the original motion.
May we have may we have a roll call on the original motion, and would you repeat the original motion, please? We have discussion. Oh, just a moment. Delegate Frizel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rather than make this comment when I'm roll call, I'd like to make it now. I'm going to vote in favor of the RPP tonight, but that doesn't mean I don't have some concerns about the RPP. I had expressed at a meeting with the staff my concern that the document in the area of the most sensitive undeveloped areas, the language indicates a mitigation, but not an outright prohibition on development in those areas. So I think there's something in this document, to me, that is not as protective of our critical ecological resources, which the document itself states is the wealth of Cape Cod, which the document states is the economy of Cape Cod. I'm concerned it's not as protective as it should be. Similarly, in the waiver language, I'm concerned that the possibility of waiver has language that should be strengthened rather than permit. It seems to be more permissive of waiver than it should be to protect our natural resources in the context of the accelerating climate change we're all experiencing that really severely impacts Cape Cod. So while I think the document is overall a good document, and I think it's got the heart, its heart's in the right place, it isn't as strong as I would like to see, but I'm not going to vote against it right now. But I am going to watch their tracking, which is another element of this document. And I hope that tool is available soon. And I'll be watching to see what kind of progress we make to protect our most important resources, which is our undeveloped natural sensitive areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Frizel. Is there any other discussion? Okay, can we put the motion to a vote?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Delegate Frederickson,
Yes.
Delegate Frizel,
Yes.
Delegate Fuller,
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher,
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gessen,
Yes.
Delegate Green,
No.
Delegate Harder,
Yes.
Delegate Killian,
Yes.
Delegate King,
Yes.
Dean Omen,
Yeah.
Delegate O'Malley,
Yes.
Delegate Sampson,
Yes.
Delegate Ty,
Yes.
Speaker Warner,
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, that's 14 members in favor, representing 98.44% of the county's population.
Next is the Assembly of Delegates Standing Committee on Health and Human Services Committee meeting of November 17th. Delegate O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Standing Committee on Health and Human Services met 2 days ago. Present that day were the regular members, myself, Delegate Ty, Delegate Frederickson, Delegate Green, Delegate Wyman Colombo. We met remotely at 3 p.m. The committee considered two issues. We first received an update from Andrea Scarpolini, Food Access Coordinator, and Kim Conkra, Community Nutrition Food Safety Specialist from the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension, regarding food access and nutrition initiatives across Barnstable County. Staff reported a significant increase in food pantry usage and outlined both immediate and long-term responses, including the development of the Community and Agriculture Resilience Audit Tool, CIRAT, and the utilization of a $1.2 million local food purchasing grant. The second issue, committee also reviewed proposed resolution 2025-13, a measure endorsing pending state legislation to establish a single-payer healthcare system. Chair O'Malley introduced the resolution by outlining the potential for significant financial savings for both the county and local municipalities through the creation of a Massachusetts Healthcare Trust. Discussion among members focused on the practical implications of the legislation, with specific inquiries regarding the proposed payroll tax funding structure, the impact on the private insurance industry, and the transition for current municipal employees. The committee voted unanimously to favorably recommend the proposed resolution to the full assembly. And with that, I move proposed resolution for this 2025 session, number 13.
Second.
Thank you.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Do I make a presentation?
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Many of you know that I was a primary care physician on the Outer Cape for 40 years. Through that experience in an independent practice. So I was kind of responsible for every part of what happened there. The Outer Cape, when I first started practicing there in the late 70s, early 80s, was a place where health insurance coverage was rather limited, owing to the fact that we don't have a lot of industries. The people who mostly had insurance were municipal employees. Although I bartered for services, for clams and lobsters and fish, that wasn't very helpful to people who had to go see a specialist, had to have a study done or a procedure, or who wound up in the hospital. They wound up with bills that were impossible. Much of that is better under the Affordable Care Act, which is, of course, now under its own threat. But the problem has not resolved. I have a son who's 48 years old, who, although employed full-time as a plumber, a relatively good trade, did not have health insurance until spring of this year. With health insurance, he saw a doctor who had some very real serious concerns. He underwent cardiac testing. And 2 months ago, a month or so ago, early in October, he had to undergo a cardiac catheterization and have stents put in, and he's had a heart attack. When I use the expression care delayed is care denied, that's what I'm talking about. He didn't have care. Care was essentially denied to him, and he's had a heart attack. His heart is damaged as a result of that. This is the primary reason why I have been such an ardent supporter of a so-called single-payer plan from much of my working life. I've seen too much of that. I've seen how it breaks people when they get sick. Their resources are expended when a senior has to go in a nursing home and they have to sell their house and take Medicaid, put a lien on the house. For me, this has been largely a human rights issue. I see human rights, I see healthcare as a human right. And in fact, in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights promulgated by the United Nations in 1948, healthcare is specifically included as a human right. So that's been how I've looked at this and worked on it. In the course of my advocacy, and we heard from a couple people who were part of the organization that I work with, the Cape Cod Coalition for Universal Healthcare. We picked up on a tool that a group in Western Mass had initiated to help employers understand what the financial impacts would be of universal healthcare, education, Medicare for all legislation on Beacon Hill. They developed a simple little hand calculator. We took that little hand calculator, turned it into a spreadsheet, and distributed it to many towns on the Cape, including the county. And the county completed this survey for us back in fiscal year 22. And it showed that under the terms of that legislation, the county would have saved about $2.1 million. Just last month, Finance Director Carol Coppola redid those numbers for us. And at this point, the county would stand to save $2.5 million every year on what it pays for health insurance premiums for our employees. Now, understand that we would no longer be, in essence, insuring our own employees. The structure of what's proposed in this legislation is a publicly financed health insurance model. This is not national health care like they have in England. This is a public health insurance model. That is, we all pay in taxes to it and need it and use it as we need it. And I'm always quick to point out that's kind of like our police, fire, rescue, our libraries, and our schools. We pay our taxes and we hope like crazy that we don't need to call the fire department. That's true of what this would be. The healthcare would still be delivered by the same doctors and hospitals operating as they do now. Publicly financed, the fee structure is outlined in the legislature, and I'll briefly describe it. However, it's that employers would pay 7.5% to 8% depending on their size, and an employee would pay 2.5%. Now, for somebody who's making after the first $20,000 of their income are excluded. Now, for a person making 50 grand, a relatively low wage employee, exclude the 20, you got 30,000. That looks like $750 is 2.5% a year. This is insurance that covers everything that all insurance covers now, plus vision, dental care, hearing, mental health, pharmaceuticals, and most critically, long-term care in a nursing home. We're talking about an extraordinary array of coverage that covers everyone, independent of their job. What happened during COVID was people lost their jobs and they lost their health insurance at the most impossibly bad time in modern memory. It's not a system that works. It's clearly not working. We pay twice as much as any country in the world per capita for our health insurance, and our health outcomes are on a par with some really troubled, economically undeveloped countries. So, as I said, Director Coppola redid the results for us, and that's this little handout that this is the spreadsheet. What we see is that we're currently paying about almost $3.6 million for our community health, for our current employees in the county. And under this legislation, our costs would be reduced by $2.5 million a year. We know that this is just for the Barnstable County structure. Each of the towns has done these things. We've done it in 11 towns and extrapolated out from what we know. We're looking at about $60 to $65 million a year that would stay on Cape were this to pass. That is money that does not go over the bridge to the commercial insurers. I think both from the standpoint of human rights, for which I have been long, a fairly strong advocate, and from the standpoint of the fiscal future of our county, this is something that we should get behind. This has been stalled in conference. This has been stalled in committee. It has been stopped in committee session after session. This session, however, the committee has not referred it for study, that is, Deep Sixed it. It has been left open. So in fact, they are still receiving comments. The purpose of this resolution is to put this body, the legislative body of this regional government, on record with our legislators as being supportive of this from both of those two perspectives. And I would ask you all for your support on this. I am going to make a very small amendment which concerns the list of people who would be, to whom the results of an approval would be sent. To add simply a line at the end. Oh, damn. Too many pieces here. Yes. To add a line, the original thing said, will communicate in writing its endorsement of this resolution to our local state representatives and state senators and the governor, and also to both our United States senators and to a representative in Congress. To that, my amendment would add, Chair Senator Cindy Friedman, the Joint Committee on Healthcare Finance, Chair Representative John Lawn, Joint Committee on Healthcare Finance, Adelina Huo, Healthcare Finance Policy Director in the Massachusetts Senate, Tim O'Neill, Committee Director, Joint Committee on Healthcare Finance, and the MassCare Statewide Single Payer Organization. That's the only amendment.
Second.
Thank you. Did we have a discussion on that? No? Okay. Clerk Fletcher, could we have a call?
So this would be a roll call on the technical amendment that first. So Delegate Frederickson?
Okay, can you repeat what we're voting on at the moment?
At this point, it's the technical correction, adding the additional recipients that Delegate O'Malley asked for. So it's on that motion to amend. Delegate Frederickson?
Yes.
Delegate Frizzell?
Yes.
Delegate Fuller?
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher?
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gesson?
Yes.
Delegate Green?
Yes.
Delegate Harder?
Yes.
Delegate Killian?
Yes.
Delegate King?
Yes.
Gene Omen?
Yes.
Delegate O'Malley?
Yes.
Delegate Sampson?
Yes.
Delegate Ty?
Yes.
Speaker Warner?
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo?
Yes.
That's unanimous, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Delegate Frederickson.
Okay, we're open for discussion on the ordinance. Is that correct?
Resolution, but yes. It's a resolution, but yes.
Okay. The resolution.
Yes. Okay. I did a lot of research over the last few days. Delegate O'Malley, I love what his passion for this and support the concept. But after digging into it, I was actually at the State House yesterday, went into the Healthcare Finance Department, talked with personnel there. This is a very, very long way to go. And as much as we might see some savings on the county and the municipal side, there are lots of expenses. There's a lot of moving parts that need a lot of refinement. I encourage you all to read through it and you will understand what just my novice view of it is. Although I do understand that healthcare is such a big issue. It's going to get bigger when the subsidies get rolled back
pre-COVID, the original subsidies that were in place. So I would abstain from voting on this on the basis that it is very unlikely to pass and they need to do more work. And I could certainly support something that is more affordable for everybody, because there will be expenses for a lot of people that'll skyrocket their costs. But it needs a lot more work and a lot of cooperation from the federal government to get anywhere. So that's where I stand. I'm just going to tell you up front, I support the concept and listening to Delegate O'Malley. I love the way he explains it, but I can't at this point vote in the affirmative for this.
Thank you, Delegate Frederickson. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Delegate O'Malley, for bringing this in front of the county. I think there's an important question that folks have asked me, at least, is why are we talking about it at the county? This is a state issue, it's a federal issue. Nationally, our healthcare system is pretty broken and unaffordable. But at the same time, I really value this being brought in front of the county, because I think in the year 2025, to have a healthcare system in the richest country in the world where people have to choose between life-saving healthcare or a roof over their head or food on their table is completely unacceptable. And for far too long, there have been questions like Delegate Frederickson has pointed out, but nobody's been getting answers to those questions, at least not at any rate that's actually going to get us to a system that works and a system that protects people, guarantees healthcare for everyone, and really Medicare for all or single payer healthcare, whatever you call it, is going to have to be the solution. And if the county taking a stance on this issue is at least another step towards making this conversation an unavoidable one for folks that are going to make this decision, then I absolutely support it. And I thank Delegate O'Malley for bringing this resolution in front of the Assembly.
Thank you, Deputy. Did you want to respond to that first?
I wanted to respond somewhat to Delegate Frederickson's comments. I hate to admit it, but I think it is indeed, it's a long road. I've been on this path for decades now. We are moving towards it. We are inevitably moving towards it because, quite frankly, for all the years and years of discussions about other options, there aren't any. There's none been proposed. There's no other country in the world that has come up with a better way of doing it. I mean, every essentially developed country has it. As to the question of, and this is a conversation that he and I had just the other day, as to the conversation about how there are details that aren't altogether clear, I would say two things. Number one, every time this bill is brought back, it is refined. It is refined in response to public discussions and conversations. And yeah, we need to talk about that. We need to be clear about just exactly how that's going to be done. So it changes each iteration. And number two, what the bill largely does, and it's a 90 odd page, it's not easy reading. What it essentially does is it sets up the structure. This is an independent agency operating under the aegis of the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, but is not directly a part of it. It would be comprised. What the bill actually does is it sets up who are going to be the representatives, the delegates, the members of the various bodies. There shall be a director of information technology. There shall be a director of quality control and the likes of that. When those departments, when this finally happens, and it inevitably will, when this finally happens, departments will be set up, and the nuts and bolts of how you'd run it on a day-to-day basis would be put into place. As to what is the significance of our doing this, I will say this. This has been voted. this has been a concept that has been put to the vote in Massachusetts in referenda over 70 times. It has never failed. It has never once in 70 referendum failed. And it has passed every time by about 70%. And currently, the survey tool that's in your handout that the county used has been distributed. And now there are towns and cities, including Cambridge and Brookline and Boston, who have done this. And there are resolutions coming in from towns and municipalities across the state. What we're looking at today is a model, as we heard from the commentator Betsy Smith. Brewster passed it nearly unanimously, as did Wellfleet. We would be the highest level legislative body in Massachusetts to ever weigh in favor of this, should we approve this today. This is not an overnight. It's a long process. We are simply putting our shoulder behind the effort and doing what we can. I believe in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Delegate Green.
Thank you, Speaker Warner. I will vote for this. I've been a proponent of universal or single payer health for decades. I was CEO of a healthcare consulting firm with a national reach for over a decade. And I firmly believe that this is a direction we will have to go in. At some point in time, I wish it was sooner rather than later. I can't say that I agree 100% with what is in the legislation before the Massachusetts legislature. However, endorsing this doesn't mean that we support every single detail. We as individuals can certainly put forth resolutions that could be taken seriously by our legislature, by our Cape and Islands delegation. It's possible for us as individuals, or to come back with actual further resolutions. But we're endorsing the concept, we're endorsing the bills. And I think it's important for us to do it, as Delegate O'Malley has said. This is a unique opportunity for 15 towns to weigh in, a whole region, a whole county, and we have that legislative authority, and I think it's important for us to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Green. Delegate Friesel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think that, as the prior speakers have said, this is endorsing a concept, and it's not endorsing any details of any particular legislation. We know it's merely one step. I think the pros and cons of this have been set before us in our discussion. Given the hour, if we can, I would move the question.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Clerk Fletcher, I keep making the delegate.
So I guess this is a roll call vote on moving the question now. Delegate Frederickson.
Abstain.
All right, Delegate Friesel.
Yes.
Delegate Fuller.
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gaston.
Yes.
Delegate Green.
Yes.
Delegate Harder.
Yes.
Delegate Killian.
Yes.
Delegate King.
Yes.
Dean Omen.
Yes.
Delegate O'Malley.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson.
Yes.
Delegate Ty.
Yes.
Speaker Warner.
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
So that is 14 in favor of moving the question. Now, what's up on the agenda is the motion to adopt the resolution as amended. So would you like a roll call, Madam Speaker?
No, you need to roll call.
Oh, yes, please.
Delegate Frederickson.
Abstain.
Delegate Friesel.
Yes.
Delegate Fuller.
Yes.
Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gaston.
Yes.
Delegate Green.
Yes.
Delegate Harder.
Yes.
Delegate Killian. No. Delegate King.
Yes.
Dean Omen.
Yes.
Delegate O'Malley.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson.
Yes.
Delegate Ty.
Yes.
Speaker Warner.
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, that's 13 delegates representing 69.8% 0.79% of the county's population.
Thank you all.
Okay. So the motion passes. There are no orders of the day for the calendar. Is there any new business?
We do have a proposed ordinance that was introduced as the regional administrator discussed on the supplemental budget for the Registry of Deeds basement. So in our rules, because it's a supplemental budget, it has to go to finance for their consideration before we consider it. So I'll be reaching out to the members of finance to try to set up that meeting and talking to the administration about what their timescale is. That's all I got.
Here's part of it.
Oh,
Where does that go?
announcements. Announcement.
Okay. All right. Are there any announcements?
I've got one. Sorry, I promise I'll keep it short. A number of delegates have reached out and asked when I'm going to be able to be in person as deputy speaker, when I'm going to be remote. And I think that's a totally fair question to ask, just because, especially when the speaker isn't able to be here or is remote, we want to make sure we have coverage on this point. And having almost finished my first semester of law school, I've got a better idea of what that balance looks like. So just for general situational awareness, for the rest of the meetings of the year, when the speaker is going to be remote, I'll be here in person presiding. And then next year, once I get my spring semester schedule, I'll publish a schedule for those so curious as to the meetings I'm going to be in person at. But it's going to be more than half the meetings in the year 2026. And happy to answer any questions folks have after the meeting. Thank you.
And there was also this doesn't have to be decided today, it could be decided at the next meeting, but rather than doing, since we kind of ran a little late this year, rather than doing a Christmas celebration, there was a thought to might do a New Year's celebration in the January year. And so if you would consider that and let Owen know what your preference is. I know some people are going to be away for the holidays, and just usually at that time, we're all pretty busy between family and work and stuff. So if you would just please get to you so we can, do some, we're going to have a great party, I promise, and have some fun after the New Year's, if that's when you plan to do it. And we'll do it before then, if that's when you prefer to do it. Thank you. And nothing else. Last on the business is adjourn.
Second.
Looking at me like you want a roll call. I think people want to go home. Delegate Frederickson is gone. Delegate Frizzell,
Yes.
Delegate Fuller. Oh, he's back. Delegate Frederickson, would you like to adjourn? Okay. Delegate Frizzell.
Yes. Yes.
Delegate Fuller. Yes. Delegate Gallagher.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker Gesson.
Yes.
Delegate Green.
Yes.
Delegate Harder.
Yes.
Delegate Killian.
Yes.
Delegate King.
Yes.
Dean Omen.
Yes.
Delegate O'Malley.
Yes.
Delegate Sampson.
Yes.
Delegate Ty.
Yes.
Speaker Warner.
Yes.
Delegate Wyman Colombo.
Yes.
So.
We're adjourned.